Close your eyes for a moment and picture a 7-year-old girl stepping onto a glittering studio sound stage. Her smile is radiant, her laughter infectious. Yet behind those innocent eyes lies a story no one is prepared to hear. That girl was Drew Barrymore, born into Hollywood royalty but robbed of her childhood by adults chasing the next red carpet moment. While the world watched her light up the screen in E.T., her heart ached for simple pleasures, playground laughter, bedtime stories, and the safety of a home untouched by fame. Decades later, as she approaches 50, the bright lights still shimmer, but the shadows of a stolen youth deepen. What happened to this child star turned global icon? Why did the spotlight burn so fiercely she had nowhere to hide? A dynasty's pedigree promised grandeur, yet under the Barrymore name lay a hidden legacy of pain. From Morris Barrymore's tragic passion to John Barrymore's Shakespearean triumphs and descent into addiction, each generation grappled with a silent curse. Drew's own lineage carried both artistic brilliance and a haunting propensity for self-destruction. Picture the old Barrymore mansion at night, laughter echoing down empty halls, glasses clinking to forgotten melodies, and whispers of dreams that darkened as quickly as they shimmered. Her mother's chaotic ambition and her father's fleeting presence only magnified the pressure to succeed, leaving Drew suspended between adoration and abandonment. As a child dancing between gilded ballrooms and psychiatric wards, she learned early that fame was both a gift and a trap. With every family portrait a cautionary tale unfolded behind the smiles. At 50 she stands at a crossroads, the weight of ancestral echoes pressing on her tender heart. You might assume that childhood fame guarantees lifelong security, but for Drew, the early triumphs were a double-edged sword. Discovered at 11 months in a dog food commercial and skyrocketing to superstardom by age 10, she endured club nights at Studio 54 before she understood what alcohol tasted like. Glamorous premieres and paparazzi flashes concealed an aching loneliness. Each smile captured on film masked an internal ache, a small girl forced into a grown-up world of addiction, therapy sessions, and legal battles. When she laughed on camera, her spirit craved freedom from the scripts written by others. The more the industry celebrated her, the more Drew questioned whether the applause could ever fill the emptiness inside. Millions watched her every move, but few grasped the hidden scars beneath the sequins, making her journey one of the most compelling sagas in Hollywood history. At 13, Drew's world plunged further when her mother placed her in a psychiatric facility, believing that control and confinement would save her from spiraling out of control. Isolated in padded rooms, stripped of her dignity, she faced the abyss of her own fears. Yet amid the darkness, she discovered a spark of resilience that no star power could extinguish. Later, relinquishing her childhood entirely, she petitioned the courts for legal emancipation at 14, surprising a society unprepared for a teenager seeking autonomy. That landmark decision marked both a victory and a burden. Freedom from parental ties, but also the sudden responsibility of navigating a complex industry alone. How does a girl survive when cast off at the apex of her own celebrity? Emerging from the ashes of scandal and solitude, Drew embarked on a fierce comeback that defied every expectation. Instead of retreating from the public eye, she seized control, founding Flower Films at 20, determined to write her own narrative. Hits like Never Been Kissed and Charlie's Angels became her declarations of independence, proving that she could shape stories that resonated with audiences worldwide. Her production company blossomed, securing her position not merely as an actress, but as a visionary. Beyond film, she ventured into philanthropy, cosmetics, and literature, turning scars into strengths and inspiring a generation to embrace authenticity as power. Yet she never flaunted her triumphs without acknowledging the journey that molded her. On her talk show, she shared laughter and vulnerability in equal measure, inviting viewers into her world as both confidante and guide. At 50, Drew stands not as a survivor of fate, but as its architect. Today at 50, Drew Barrymore navigates the paradox of public adoration and private reflection. She greets each dawn with gratitude, her 2 daughters at her side offering the childhood she never had. Yet in still moments, she confronts the echoes of abandonment, the ache of love lost, and the memory of a little girl longing just to play. Her voice remains warm, but her eyes have witnessed storms few could imagine. Every choice, from her candid interviews to her business ventures, bears the imprint of a woman who refused to be defined by her past. As Drew lights another candle on her birthday cake, we must ask, can the light finally outshine the shadows it once cast? Will she find the peace that eluded her for so long? Yet emancipation did not erase the weight of her past. On the day the judge declared her a legal adult, Drew stood alone in a courtroom that felt colder than any psychiatric ward. She was 14, free from her parents' legal ties, yet burdened by solitude and the raw reality of supporting herself in an industry that chewed up young stars. No silver screen awaited her, They only saw headlines of a runaway teenager, a child battling addiction, a legend reborn too soon. But Drew stepped outside those courthouse doors with a fierce resolve. She would rewrite her own script. In the tiny apartment she secured with savings from odd acting jobs, she scrubbed dishes in the dim glow of a single lamp. The red carpet and flashing cameras felt light years away. Nights were the hardest. Every shadow on the wall whispered memories of padded rooms and leather restraints. In those silent hours, a voice inside her insisted she was destined for more than trial and error. It was her inner spark, fragile yet unbreakable, urging her to find purpose beyond paparazzi gossip and tabloid headlines. Her comeback began not with a blockbuster announcement but with whispered negotiations over a cup of coffee in a rundown cafe. At 17, she met Nancy Juvenin, a fellow dreamer with ink on her fingers and stars in her eyes. They sketched ideas on napkins, a production company that would champion untold stories. Flower Films was born in a cramped office filled with hope and the scent of fresh ink. Drew invested her remaining trust into scripts that spoke to resilience, vulnerability, and joy. She learned to negotiate deals with studio execs who still remembered the child star scandal. Some executives dismissed her as a cautionary tale, but Drew would not be deterred. She studied contracts with the same intensity she once auditioned for Spielberg, turning each no into fuel for the next yes. Success arrived not in a blaze of glory, but as a gentle, steady climb. Never Been Kissed premiered in 1999, and critics lauded its genuine heart. The film's triumph felt like a collective exhale, proof that Drew could be celebrated for talent, not tabloid fodder. Soon after, Charlie's Angels exploded onto screens worldwide, cementing her dual role as leading lady and producer. Each paycheck felt like a victory lap around her turbulent teenage years. Yet Drew never flaunted her earnings without acknowledging the scars beneath her smile. She donated a portion to rehabilitation centers, determined that other youngsters would find support where she once found only cold hallways. Amid business triumphs, Drew's personal life teetered between hope and heartbreak. Romantic headlines briefly replaced scandalous ones when she married comedian Tom Green in Their whirlwind Malibu ceremony seemed like a fairy tale rewritten, only for tragedy to strike soon after Tom's battle with cancer, a devastating fire at their home. The union ended within months, but not before Drew confronted a painful truth: love alone could not heal inherited wounds. Yet she walked away wiser, her heart stronger for having tried. With each relationship that faltered, she learned more about the person she wished to become: compassionate, honest, and fiercely independent. Healing deepened when motherhood arrived. In 2012, Drew cradled her first daughter, Olive, feeling a warmth she'd only glimpsed in fleeting childhood memories. For the first time, diapers and bedtime stories replaced party invitations and red carpets. Her second daughter, Frankie, soon followed, and Drew realized these tiny hands could anchor her to the present in ways no script ever had. She shielded her children from Hollywood's glare, determined they would grow up in laughter, not limelight. Yet the specter of her own upbringing lingered. She vowed never to let ambition eclipse tenderness, never to let success steal their innocence. Still, the journey to 50 was punctuated by battles with self-doubt and the relentless tick of public expectation. Each year brought a new project: Flower Beauty Cosmetics, a daytime talk show, best-selling memoirs, and each triumph tasted bittersweet against the backdrop of past traumas. Social media applauded her authenticity, but Drew often logged off feeling the familiar ache of isolation. Interviews would end, lights dim, and she would walk back down the hall to quiet rooms where echoes of failure still resonated. Yet with every sunrise, she confronted those echoes head-on, reminding herself that resilience was built in the unglamorous moments. And so, as she stands on the cusp of 50, Drew Barrymore embodies paradox: a woman drenched in stardust, who knows the sting of solitude, a mother whose greatest masterpiece is her children, not her films. The little girl who once begged for normalcy now commands stages with unshakable confidence. She crafts stories that wrap audiences in hope, humor, and heart. Her laughter retains a hint of melancholy, but each smile is more radiant for having endured the storms behind the scenes. What happened to Drew Barrymore at 50? She became her own hero. Against every expectation, she forged an empire of compassion, creativity, and candid vulnerability. She discovered that true fame lies not in applause but in the courage to face one's darkest hours and still find reasons to laugh. In that quiet, transformative space between spotlight and shadow, Drew learned the hardest lesson of all: the truest power is surrendering to imperfection, allowing scars to become signposts guiding her toward empathy. And in sharing her story, raw, unfiltered, and profoundly human, she invites us all to recognize that our own battles, however private, can light the way for others. At 50, Drew Barrymore's name has become synonymous with resilience and reinvention. Yet beneath her radiant smile pulses a restless heart, always seeking its next challenge. After flower films and blockbuster successes, she turned her gaze to beauty, launching Flower Beauty in 20. With shelves stocked at major retailers, the line promised accessible radiance. A mission born not from boardroom strategy, but from a woman determined that her daughters need never chase impossible ideals. Drew immersed herself in product development, traveling the world in search of plant extracts and pigments that would empower women to celebrate imperfection. In interviews, she spoke of formulation labs as if they were creative studios, marveling at the alchemy of science and self-expression. When the first lip gloss sold out in hours, she realized that authenticity, not glossy marketing, was the secret ingredient. Not content to confine her vision to cosmetics, Drew expanded into home goods, wine and media. She inked deals with CoverGirl, Gucci, and launched collaborations on pottery, clothing, and artisanal teas. Her media empire swelled with memoirs that topped bestseller lists and a daytime talk show that debuted in 20. The Drew Barrymore Show arrived at a moment of global unease, offering a sanctuary of warmth and candor. Audiences logged on to see her laughter, but stayed for her empathy, as she guided conversations about love, loss, and healing. Even the most hardened guests found themselves unguarded under her soft gaze, drawn to a host who had known both applause and heartache. Ratings soared, and within a year the show was renewed for multiple seasons, cementing her place not just as an entertainer but as a cultural confidante. Yet success does not inoculate the soul against doubt. Behind the camera, Drew still battles restless nights and the weight of expectation. Social media reflections can be unkind, each post dissected, each smile questioned for authenticity. She scrolls through comments that praise her strength one moment and criticize her vulnerability the next, an emotional seesaw that no number of followers can steady. "The world wants you to be invincible," she confessed in a rare interview, "but I'm still that little girl who just wanted someone to keep her safe." Her honesty struck a chord, transforming the platform into a space where imperfection became courage and vulnerability became power. Her philanthropic endeavors began quietly, with partnerships to raise funds for mental health awareness. Drew donated proceeds from her memoirs and show appearances to treatment centers, determined to shine a light on struggles that once nearly consumed her. She sat on panels discussing the importance of early intervention, drawing from personal memories of padded rooms and lost adolescence. Audiences were moved by her willingness to share, by a star who traded red carpets for courtroom benches in pursuit of legal emancipation. Each speech, each charitable auction, felt like a breadcrumb trail she laid down for others who might find themselves in darkness, unsure if they could find the exit. As the years advanced into the 2020s, Drew confronted a new chapter: age. Turning 50 carries the inevitable reckoning with mortality, not as a distant concept but as a daily whisper. Lines around her eyes serve as a map of laughter and tears, each etched by moments both joyous and harrowing. The entertainment industry still prizes youth, yet Drew embraced her changing face with defiant grace. She penned essays about aging in the spotlight, urging her peers to redefine beauty and influence. Her candid musings earned praise on social media, where women thanked her for normalizing gray strands and soft edges. Motherhood remained her North Star. Olive and Frankie thrived under the shelter of her unconditional love, each milestone a new chapter in a story she once feared she could never co-author. She marveled as Olive blossomed into a budding designer, guiding her first sketches with gentle encouragement. Frankie's mature insight sometimes astonished her mother, a reminder that childhood resilience is an inheritance as potent as any family curse. With each parent-teacher conference, each dance recital, Drew felt a peace she once believed unattainable. Yet even in these tender moments, a sliver of her old anxiety hovered. What if the shadows of her own upbringing crept into theirs? So she tucked lessons into bedtime stories, about courage, about imperfection, about finding strength in kindness. Professionally, she continued to push boundaries, directing episodes of her talk show and exploring scripted series roles that challenged her. A cameo in a darkly comedic thriller reminded critics that she could still vanish into character with startling authenticity. Later, she authored another memoir, weaving together themes of trauma, triumph, and the messy terrain in between. Fans devoured it, leaving reviews that spoke of how her story mirrored their own struggles and hopes. Drew realized that her greatest legacy might not be the films she produced or the products she launched, but the permission she granted others to embrace their scars as testaments of survival. Looking ahead, Drew has quietly begun mentoring a cohort of young filmmakers through a scholarship program she established at her alma mater. Each year, she invites 4 teenagers to consult on a short film, guiding them through scriptwriting, casting, and editing. She sees this as the most meaningful legacy, lighting the path for new voices who might otherwise be overlooked by Hollywood. Yet every legacy demands reconciliation with one's origins. Drew spent months restoring the Barrymore family home in Montecito, turning it into a sanctuary filled with laughter instead of echoes. She filled the halls with duffel bags of craft supplies for her daughters and installed a music room where siblings could play undisturbed by fame's glare. On warm evenings, they gathered around a fire pit she designed herself, telling stories that spanned generations, both bright tales of theatrical triumph and cautionary fables of addiction's grip. She hoped that by mapping her family's history in light and shadow, she could break the cycle of inherited pain, ensuring that the next generation carried only its artistic brilliance. Now, as she stands at 50, Drew Barrymore is neither the innocent child in a dog food commercial, nor the party girl of her teenage years, nor the tabloid cautionary tale. She is a woman forged by her trials, propelled by her triumphs, and softened by her compassion. Each venture, from blockbuster hits to bedtime tales for Olive and Frankie, is a testament to a life lived fully, with all its jagged edges. She wears her story like a tapestry, a collage of heartbreak and hope, of laughter and tears. And though the world will forever chase the next captivating image of Drew Barrymore, the real revelation lies in the spaces between her fame, the quiet moments of reflection, the courageous leaps into unknown ventures, and the enduring belief that the brightest lights shine when we embrace both our scars and our smiles. Even as her days fill with new accomplishments, Drew often finds herself waking to the delicate song of doubt. Mornings begin, not with triumphant headlines, but with quiet questions. Am I still enough? Does the world still need the girl who once screamed for normalcy between shoots? She sips herbal tea she helped formulate, glancing at a framed photo of 7-year-old Drew nestled in E.T.'s cradle of light. The memory reminds her that innocence, once stolen, can be reclaimed only through deliberate acts of courage. By midday, her calendar bursts with meetings, brainstorming sessions for an upcoming limited series, a video call with mental health advocates, and a charity luncheon benefiting juvenile emancipation programs. Each engagement is a choice to lean into influence, to shape narratives that prioritize truth over tabloid sensationalism. Yet behind every smile in the boardroom, there lingers the echo of a young girl enduring the hush of padded walls. Drew channels that echo into empathy, ensuring every conversation centers on healing wounds rather than highlighting scars. Afternoons are spent drafting scripts for a passion project, a semi-autobiographical drama about a child star who reclaims her life by finding her inner child. The lead character's journey mirrors Drew's own. There's an arid desert of doubt she must cross before discovering an oasis of self-acceptance. As she taps keys on the laptop in her home office, pastel flowers from her cosmetics line blooming on the desk, she finds solace in creating. Words flow like therapy, each paragraph dissolving tension between past and present, turning painful memories into stories of triumph. Evenings bring a different kind of performance, bedtime rituals with Olive and Frankie. In their cozy playroom, she reads whimsical fairy tales peppered with themes of resilience, ensuring her daughters understand that magic often hides in everyday bravery. When Frankie asks about the story's sad turn, Drew explains that storms make the rainbow possible. The girl's laughter and soft praise fill the room with a warmth she once thought impossible. In these moments, the child she lost is found again in the arms of her own children. Nighttime reflections, however, can be restless. In the quiet hours, social media threads hum on her phone, some praising her openness, others doubting the sincerity of her vulnerability. A notification about a celebrity feud catches her eye, and she's reminded how easily the industry reduces complex lives to sound bites. She turns off the screen and breathes deeply, centering herself with a meditation technique she learned during rehabilitation. The rhythm of her breath becomes an anchor, connecting her to a sense of peace no headline can disturb. On weekends, she trades studios for the great outdoors, hiking local trails near her Montecito home. Tall redwoods stand as sentinels to her journey, reminders that roots can be both deep and flexible. With each step, she sheds layers of expectation, imagining the little girl in those trees, free to climb and dream without the weight of cameras. She carries 2 water bottles, one for herself, one for the younger version of Drew who once wandered those imagined forests alone. Creatively, she's never been more adventurous. A collaboration with a celebrated indie director is in the works, a psychological thriller exploring the fine line between memory and imagination. Drew plans to produce and star, stepping deliberately into darker terrain. It's a far cry from her early rom-com roles, but one she approaches with unbridled curiosity. The script demands she confront unsettling echoes of her past, but she welcomes that challenge. Art, she believes, must sometimes feel uncomfortable to spark transformation. Philanthropy remains central. She recently sat on a panel of former child actors, sharing strategies to navigate early fame without losing oneself. Her advocacy led to a new coalition aiming to reform on-set regulations for minors, ensuring no young performer endures the neglect she faced. Each policy proposal carries her stamp of experience, no longer theoretical, but grounded in nights spent begging for someone to notice a frightened child instead of applause.